Ah, Valentine's Day. The day of love where single people get to ponder dying alone, and where couples have to worry about planning a better date than last year. Because that's just what you gotta do. Luckily for me, I'm a fictional insect, so I don't worry about those types of things. Instead, I get to pay off my debt to society. You see, last December I was playing Yokai Watch 3 with the Wheel of Punishments, and one punishment I got was to create a video talking about my favorite ship in all of existence, Saimaki. I'm going to preface this with a quick barrier. This sort of video is quite different from what I usually make on the channel, so if you want to leave, go right ahead. I won't mind. This video will also be spoiling large portions of Danganronpa lore, so if you don't want that spoiled or have no idea what I'm talking about and don't think you'd enjoy the video because of that, then now's your time to head on out. This video will try to explain the entire concept for everybody, but it is best experienced with the added context of the series. If you don't mind spoilers and want to hear me try to explain why Saimaki is one of the greatest joys of my life in a way that even my grandma could understand, then here we go. The Urban Dictionary defines shipping as this: a term used to describe fan fictions that take previously created characters and put them together in a usually romantic pair. Sounds like nerd junk, huh? Well, if you've ever watched Harry Potter and thought, man, Harry and Hermione should be a couple, then you've taken part in shipping. Some ships are canon, canon being another word for confirmed in the universe. But more often than not, it applies to characters who aren't canonically together. These are ships that have become more popular than the official pairings, such as Zutara, and pairings that are so obscure that they could only happen in Tomodachi Life, such as Kaladin Stormblessed from the Stormlight Archives and Risei Fujikawa from Persona 4. Some people treat shipping lightly, while others make the great sacrifice of their own love life in order to dedicate their entire being to these fantastical relationships. So we've laid the groundwork. Now let's talk about Saimaki in particular. It's the ship between Shuichi Saihara and Maki Harukawa from Danganronpa V3. The ultimate thesis of this video is simple. My goal is to convince everyone watching that these two are the perfect pairing objectively. Some may say that shipping is subjective, and everyone should be free to ship who they want with whomever they want. While I'd normally agree, this is the exception. I can accept that Hammer shipping isn't the only pair for Ash, but this is the hill I will die on. Even if I have to face down 1 billion lions and one of every Pokemon, I will stand my ground. Also, it's a more fun video if I fully commit to the bit. Though I do want to note, this is all in good fun, and I mean no hate towards anyone. But for the sake of theatrics and paying off my debt to the great wheel spin, I'm fully committed from here on out. Both in stories and real life, chemistry is one of the most important things two people can have. I'm sure you can think of many stories where a main character and their love interest have no chemistry, and it makes the relationship feel forced. These two aren't getting together because they're a good match. They're getting together because the writer decided that's what's going to happen and there's nothing anyone can do about it. So, how do Shuichi and Maki do in this area? Well, it's partially subjective, but I personally think that they have the best chemistry in the whole game, maybe the whole series. Shuichi is an insecure young detective who is always doubting himself. And Maki is an assassin by forced circumstance who speaks bluntly and struggles with self-loathing. Their early interactions are actually really rocky, which is a good thing. Their first interactions have Maki dismissing Shuichi, and he doesn't stand up for himself. But by the time Chapter 3 starts, they begin to build something more. Why? Well, that's simple. By this point in the story, Shuichi has confronted his insecurities. He hasn't conquered them, but he's learned how to be confident when needed. By this point, he's solved 2 murders and proven to himself that he isn't a poser. He's still shy and isn't eager for confrontation, but he's gained enough self-confidence to not become a pushover. And at this point, Maki's role as an assassin has also been revealed to everyone, though without any context. Up until this point, Maki's been self-isolating whenever possible, and doesn't have any friends. That is, until Kaito peer pressures her into joining Shuichi and him in their club, I guess? Their team? Anyway, I do have to give Kaito some credit here, because while he isn't the glue that holds Saimaki together, he is the incense that caused the two to meet. Kaito basically forced both Shuichi and Maki into being his friends, and I'm honestly not sure what I make of the Luminary of the Stars. One of the most popular polyships in the game puts the three of them together, but I'm not a big fan of that for a few reasons. For one, Kaito is dead. But more than that, I feel like Kaito himself is a Saimaki shipper. He didn't just die out of nowhere. He knew his death was coming. That's why he recruited both Maki and Shuichi. He saw that they both needed a friend or two, and planned for them to stick together, even when he would be gone. There's also the fact that Kaito and Kaede had pretty good chemistry together, and that I shipped them together instead, but that's its own side tangent. All of this to say, Shuichi and Maki became friends because of Kaito, but their friendship developed a lot without him being there. For a large portion of Chapter 3 and Chapter 5, Kaito is missing, leaving Shuichi and Maki to work together without him. And I'd say that's where they shine the most bright. Shuichi is willing to understand Maki, one of the only people to do so. And once he learns about her situation, he doesn't hate her, but tries to comfort and help her in his own way. In turn, Maki seems to see Shuichi's strengths more than he does, and encourages him. She is willing to trust him when needed, and gives him the support he needs. Unlike Kaito, who she humbles because of his arrogance, she instead encourages Shuichi to trust in himself. All of this comes together to make the perfect duo. The scenes with the two of them are my favorite in the game, and by the end, they turn to each other. When Kaito is gone, when all hope seems lost, and when they could easily fall into despair, they instead strengthen each other. The two of them build each other up, and for these two, that's the most important thing they could have in a relationship. Now, let's talk about that ending. At the end of Danganronpa V3, it's revealed that, surprise, their fictional characters, their memories of their past lives have all been made up. Maki isn't really a killer. Shuichi isn't really a detective. They were just kids who hated their lives and wanted to escape. They gave up their old memories and volunteered to enter this life-or-death game. On the one hand, this is a good thing, because Maki isn't actually a slave to some shadow organization. However, there's also a big downside. Every friend, family member, and other person in their lives, they don't actually exist. They're just false memories. By the end of the game, they only have each other. Well, each other and Himiko, but they aren't close with the little mage girl on account of her being super depressed all the time. Worse, the outside world sees them as celebrities. Have you ever thought about what life would be like for Truman after the Truman Show ended? How he'd be forced to live his whole life in doubt about what is real, and how everyone who befriended him would only see him as a character? Well, it's similar for these two. They could try to rebuild new lives outside of the death game, but could anyone else understand? Well, only one person could. Shuichi and Maki only have each other. They both lost people they care about, people they love. They both don't have anywhere else to go. They are two of the most famous people alive in the canon they live in, surrounded by people who have been watching their suffering for personal entertainment. Frankly, they don't have any other options. They can choose isolation and loneliness, or they can stick together. And with the friendship and support they give each other, I can't see Shuichi and Maki splitting up at this point. And before anyone asks, no, I see no world in which Shuichi and Himiko get together. Sorry. Now, you might think that the ship is jumping the gun. After all, why assume that Shuichi and Maki would want to get together romantically in the first place? Well, let's address Shuichi first. As the main character of the game, Shuichi's romantic inclinations are vague. Especially so since there's Salmon Mode, a non-canon side story where he can date anyone, including Maki. I think it's safe to say that Shuichi has at least some romantic interest in her. He may or may not have had feelings for Kaede, Kaito, Kokichi, or anyone else, but they're all dead. So with his options limited and their excellent chemistry, I think it's safe to say that Shuichi wants romance in his life, and I also think it's fair to assume that Shuichi is interested in Maki, based on the possibilities given in the game. Maki is both a bit more difficult, but we also have more to work with for her. For instance, the game has a unique mode where Shuichi sees into a character's ideal relationship. Maki's ideal match is a childhood friend, somebody who she trusts and has known for a long time. In her ideal dream, she is no longer an assassin, but is able to move on with her life. She also describes her ideal match as being usually unreliable, honest, and someone she can stay with forever. Now, call me crazy if you want, but Shuichi is the closest match to Maki's dream man that somebody can get. For one, Maki is not an assassin. She's free in this new world. She mentions wanting someone she's known for a long time. While she and Shuichi have only known each other for about a month or so by the time the game ends, it's been an intense month, packing a lifetime's worth of tragedy into one place. And besides, nobody else in the world has known her longer than Shuichi.
Except Himiko, but who cares?
Shuichi tends to be timid and unreliable, but when it matters most, he can step up. Shuichi refuses to let Maki sacrifice herself, proving himself trustworthy countless times through the game. And lastly, they're already staying together. Maki also mentions in multiple scenes that she wants to start her own family. Unlike other characters in the game, she wants an intimate, close relationship with someone who truly loves her. And if you ask me, Shuichi is the best possible fit for this situation. V3 ends in a very open matter, barely showing us that Shuichi and Maki both survived. But because of their trust, friendship, and strength together, I believe that the most logical continuation for the story would be for Shuichi and Maki to end up together. It will probably never be canon, but it's close enough for me to consider this a case closed. Saimaki is only non-canon because the story ended before they had the chance to get together. And hey, at the very least, I can always watch them on my Tomodachi Life Island. Anyway, thanks for joining me this Valentine's Day. I know how you humans feel with your emotional sadness, but since I don't feel that, I'm happy to have spread joys of fantastical love real humans can't have. Of course, as a fictional insect, I don't worry.